Hello Logic language learners. So this is the first video that I've done in a while, which is our translation from French into English, and in the real sense of the word translation. So we use translation to mean going from one language to another, but generally within the industry, interpreting is what happens out loud when you go from one language to another, and translation is more of a written thing. So this is obviously really useful for those of you that are doing exams, but equally those of you who are learning language through reading, even if you only intend to speak it. And also those of you who are reading newspapers, magazines, this kind of thing, or indeed writing letters. So what I've done today is I've chosen some A-level material, which is the exam that you sit in the United Kingdom before going to university. I know a great deal, in fact probably the majority of you aren't UK based. That's absolutely fine. It doesn't matter which country it comes from, it's all the same level for you. And so what we need to look at with this, I'm going to try and make comments that are useful for exams, and I'm also going to try and make comments that are useful for just generally understanding the stuff. So as per normal in this series, you are going to find a complete copy-paste of the text underneath. Okay, so you can listen to this video while reading the text in French, okay? So let's just have a look at it first. So let's just read it out loud, okay? And you are going to, there's no other way for me to do this other than look at the laptop. So you are going to follow the text with me. So if you scroll down now, you go underneath and speak English, Luke. If you go underneath and look at the description, let's have a look. So I'm going to go really slowly with the links, and then I'm going to say it again normally, okay? Après avoir volé une voiture à Chartres, le personnage principal est repéré par la police sur l'autoroute à une trentaine de kilomètres de Paris. Il tue un gendarme à coups de revolver. Après, arrivé dans la capitale, il vole de l'argent à une amie, puis retrouve une jeune étudiante espagnole. Vous auriez raison de trouver ce film original et bizarre. Quand il a été tourné, il exprimait parfaitement l'esprit de son temps. Okay? Après avoir volé une voiture à Chartres, le personnage principal est repéré par la police sur l'autoroute à une trentaine de kilomètres de Paris. Il tue un gendarme à coups de revolver. Arrivé dans la capitale, il vole de l'argent à une amie, puis retrouve une jeune étudiante espagnole. Vous auriez raison de trouver ce film original et bizarre. Quand il a été tourné, il exprimait parfaitement l'esprit de son temps. So, a bit of a mechanical reading, but let's now look at where's the camera? Now let's now look at individually the pronunciation for that for all of you. So let's go through really slowly. So après, fine, no problem. We can see the E on that, we can see the accent on that E. Après avoir, après avoir, we're going to have a link there because of the S. Volé is obviously the past there. We'll come to the translation in a minute, but the volé tells me an A because of the accent. A is the word for an in place. So we've got à Chartres, we don't pronounce the S. Okay. Le, we've got that E, so it's going to come in the chest. There's no accent on it. Personnage principal. Now, IN causes a lot of problem, but if you always remember the word information, like like the word Anne, the name Anne in English, but without the hard N. So un principal. Where are we? Repéré par la police sur l'autoroute à une trentaine en de kilomètres. So AIN is un, but we've got that trentaine because there's an E on the end. De kilomètres de Paris. Il tue, nice top lip like you, tue like you, tue, il tue un gendarme à coup, we've got the OU shape, ou à coup de revolver. Arrivé dans la capitale, il vole de l'argent à une amie, puis retrouve, retrouve une jeune étudiante espagnole. Vous auriez raison de trouver ce film original et bizarre. Quand il a été tourné, now notice, when we have quand ending in a D and then a vowel, we don't say, sorry, and then yes, and then a vowel, we don't say quand il, we say quand il with a T, okay? So quand il a été tourné, we've got to go through the OU, tourné, not tourné, tourné. Il exprimait parfaitement, we're going to hear the T because of the E, l'esprit de son temps. Okay, so that is the, and we don't pronounce the M, we don't pronounce the P and the S in temps, which bothers a lot of people. Okay, so now let's look at what it means, so, and what we can take from it. So, après avoir volé une voiture, after having stolen, okay? So this is really useful, this after stealing, we can avoid doing the after I stole, we can just say after stealing. So I've said this before many times, après avoir plus the past word, or après être plus the past word. And by past word, I mean your third word in your 1, 2, 3 tense. J'ai volé, I have stolen, après être volé. Can I remind you that voler also means to fly? Yeah, un vol, we had it in the transport holiday vocab the other day. So voler means to fly. So je m'envole, I'm flying away. Okay. So when you're translating this, you would be successful if you wrote after stealing or after having stolen. And when you do translation, the basic gist of translation is for you to provide something which makes sense and respects the original. Sometimes you can't entirely keep to the original, you need to find something that makes sense. But for exams, we want to be cautious and we want to let them know that you are a careful translator. So I wouldn't recommend always putting 2 options, but when you've got après avoir volé, maybe write after stealing or after having stolen in brackets to show that you know this trick really well. Okay, so after having stolen a car in Chartres, the place, the main character. Yeah, so caractère is the wrong word. That's more like what kind of personality somebody's in real life. In real life. So the main character, the principal character. Can I remind you, principal, we often have that word, it's the word for main. If it's a masculine plural, it would be principaux, A-U-X. So the main characters would be les personnages principaux. But here we've got one, so le personnage principal, okay, et repéré. Now, point de repère is basically your bearings, is located. Yeah, we've got his bearings. So it's located by the police, okay? On the motorway at, so in French we say à before distance, so we'd say roughly 30 kilometers from Paris. Because you can't, what would 30 kilometers away would give me à 30 kilomètres with 30, but it's une trentaine. Yeah, like, which is what you use for age when someone's in their 30s. Okay, I wouldn't know, I'm still in my 20s. So à une trentaine de kilomètres de Paris. Okay, roughly 30 kilometers from Paris. Okay, so he kills a policeman. Now notice. If you weren't sure of what a word means, sometimes if you just leave it in the original French, rather than guess incorrectly. Because, for example, even speaking in English, because there are different types of French police, you would still often refer to them as a gendarme. Okay, so be sure, that's a trick you might want to use. Okay, or put it in inverted commas as if to say you know with your tenses. Don't accidentally go into the past. You know, then he killed. No, you're telling the story in the present tense. He kills a gendarme. Now, this is where you've got to decide how much of this can I keep and how much of this can I alter. So, coup is kind of like a bang, a blow, whatever, de revolver, okay? But are we going to try and translate that literally, or could we just say he kills a policeman, you know, with a revolver? Okay, is basically pretty an easy way of doing this. Okay. If you wanted to try and be clever and write, you know, with several sorts of shots from a revolver, but the point is, a coup is also a blow. So it could be that you whack the guy over the head with the revolver. Okay, but that's not what it is here. So if you can think of another way of saying it, great. But you've got to not change the meaning. You can't change the meaning. Okay. Arrivé dans la capitale. Now this is clever on purpose. What tense is arrivé? It is arrived. Normally we'd say je suis arrivé. So it's telling me arrived in the capital, which is basically in English we'd say once he'd arrived in the capital or arrived in the capital. Okay. So we wouldn't really say arrived in the capital in English. We'd say once he's arrived in the capital, or when he gets to the capital. Okay. Now, il vole de l'argent à une amie. Now, listen to this. L'argent would be the money, wouldn't it? Yeah, we know the word the. As I've told you many times before, de le, or de la, or du, effectively, is some money. So he steals some money, or he steals money. But the fact is, it's not the money. It's not l'argent. It's de l'argent. Okay? Now, notice the preposition here. You probably want to say d'une amie, from a friend. We've talked about this before with indirect pronouns. In French, if you use the to the person, it's bringing them in to the sentence in an indirect way, but not as the main object. For example, I do his work, je lui fais son travail. Je lui fais son travail. I'm not doing him, I'm doing his work. So the use of a here means he is the target of this action, but the main object of this action is the money that's been taken. So it's not wrong to use a here in French, okay? But in English we would just write he steals some money from a friend, okay? Puis is then, retrouve une jeune étudiante espagnole. Okay, now this is where you've got to be careful. Retrouve in French means to re-find, but there are plenty, or find again. But there are plenty of times when you use verbs in French which have an re at the beginning when it's not the doing it again. So for example, to add can be ajouter, or je vais rajouter, I'm going to add. Hey, I'll meet you guys later. Even if it's someone you've never met. Hey, Luke, my mom is in town, she's French, come and talk to her. Okay, fine. Okay, tu peux nous rejoindre. Why rejoindre? Yeah, you're not rejoining them, you didn't meet them before, but you would use re in French. This happens quite a lot, so I find myself, je me retrouve. Okay, so il puis retrouve une jeune étudiante espagnole. It just makes it a little bit less, he found her on the street kind of thing, okay? Now, what is the gender of the Spanish student here? It is feminine. So in French, it implies feminine simply by having une. So your choice would be then meets or meets up with a young female Spanish student or a young Spanish student. It's up to you whether you think the feminine is important, and you wouldn't be getting it going from French to English otherwise, okay? Okay, so next one. Vous auriez raison de trouver ce film original et bizarre. Now, what is basically vous avez raison? Whenever you get these expressions, take it to the present, because I bet you are more familiar in the present. So what is vous avez raison? It means you are right. Okay? What visually is happening when I look at auriez? What do you recognise? So we've got the R and my ending after the R. So that tells me that we're in the will or the would. Yeah, we're in the will or the would. Okay? Have I got one of my re, ra, wrong endings basically taken from the verb have? No, I've got something different. So when I've got an R and something different, I know I'm in the would. So remember, you need to keep the tense correct, but you need also to keep the appropriate verb. So you're not going to say you would have reason, you've got to be you would be right. So I'm right, j'ai raison, you're right, tu as raison, you would be right, tu aurais raison, you guys or you formally would be right, vous auriez raison. So you'd be right to find this film, normal version of find, original and bizarre, okay? You can write bizarre or you can write strange, okay? Quand il a été tourné, what is the il referring to here? It's referring to the film. So when it was made or shot, or, you know, tourné is to turn, so it's the verb that we use for on a tournage. which is basically the shoot of a film, the filming of a movie. Okay, so when it was is how we're going to translate it in French. In English, obviously in French we're not saying quand il était tourné. Yeah, we're going to say quand il était tourné. So more of an action in the French. But in English we'd go with the when it was being filmed. We could go with when it was being filmed or when it was filmed. Okay. Or made, or shot, or whatever, okay? Il exprimait parfaitement l'esprit de son temps. Now, this is where you need a choice. So let's just use our hands. So exprimait, we're in this one, aren't we? We're not in the action. Exprimait is to express. You can, je m'exprime, I express myself. So would we say it was expressing, or it used to express perfectly the spirit of the time? What can we always do with an imperfect? When we've got the used to tense, we can just swap it for the simple past. I used to speak French with my grandmother. I spoke French with my grandmother. Okay, so it used to express would just be it's expressed. Okay, it's expressed perfectly, so it perfectly expressed the spirit. You can work that one out looking at the word of. Now look at son temps. Temps is time, obviously. It does mean tense as well, but you know in this context it means time. What is son? What is mon, ma, me, my? What is ton, ta, te, your? What is son, sa, se? His or her, but also its. Yeah, don't forget we've got the it is like a he and a she in the French. So you can basically say it perfectly expressed the spirit of the time or of its time. You could kind of go with both there, okay? Lovely, that's great. I hope this was useful. I will do another one of these. Do another one of these really soon. Please, by the way, please click like if you like the video. It'd be really useful, and please subscribe.